And I want to take this moment to thank Lloyd Doggett for bringing this amendment to us, and I yield the balance of my time to him.
I thank the gentleman. Mr. Chairman, you have outlined wide-ranging responsibilities and oversight for this committee on so many matters that touch the lives of American families, from health care to taxation to trade to the well-being of our children. But I don't believe that there is any issue that this committee could consider that is more important than the confidence that the American people have in our democracy. Whether our system of checks and balances truly works. And this morning, here on Valentine's Day, I believe the American people have good reason to be concerned about more than from Russia with love as to what is occurring here. The history of the last month, which we know largely from press reports, is that some weeks ago, the acting Attorney General, Sally Yates, who has now been fired by the President, acted in a way that was joined by the head of the Central Intelligence Agency at that time, Mr. Brennan, joined by the Director of National Intelligence, Mr. Clapper, in submitting to the White House information that suggested that the new National Security Advisor might be subject to some blackmail from the Russians. We now have members of this committee. In fact, at the same time, Mr. Chairman, you rejected last night Mr. Pascrell's letter and request suggesting that we need a new IRS commissioner. We have the announcement that the Oversight Committee has refused to consider this issue. I believe that this committee should act in an appropriate manner, which will be a process of basically getting all of these tax returns into a private session that will be closed, that our staff can look thoroughly through the mounds of material to determine what foreign entanglements might be there and what other issues might be lurking there that led the President apparently to go many years without paying any taxes at all. The action that we would take would be an appropriate one to consider what foreign entanglements are there that might jeopardize our security. We know the President had some investments, and he's decided to maintain some ownership interest in his company that involves state-owned enterprises in some countries. This is even without having the full disclosure of the returns. And as to the returns themselves, the President indicated he would make this public. He has not commented on it other than through a Sunday morning talk show in late January, where his spokesperson, Kellyanne Conway, suddenly announced that no one was really interested in this, and therefore he would not issue the returns. Mr. Yin, who I referred to earlier, who once chaired our tax committee, pointed to the history of this with reference to the Nixon case, where there were allegations eventually included in one of the articles of impeachment against him that the President attempted to use the IRS for unlawful purposes. In the present situation, referring to Mr. Trump, repeated attacks on the agency, the IRS, have weakened it and perhaps left it vulnerable to undue influence from higher-ups. Full disclosure could disabuse the public of any concern that the IRS is giving the President a free pass. For national security reasons, for the integrity of our tax system, for insight as we proceed with tax reform to ensure that everyone is treated fairly, I would respectfully ask that you include this amendment and make it a part of our oversight responsibilities, and I yield back and thank the Chair.